Sometimes the smallest footsteps leave the deepest marks. He was a millionaire CEO, known for being ruthless in business and distant in heart. She was just a little girl with oversized shoes, carrying a note from her sick mother. But when she walked into his high-rise office, meant for a job interview her mother could no longer attend, something cracked inside his stone-cold heart. What started as a broken appointment soon became a story that would change not just one family's life, but his own soul forever. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was electric. Executives sat around the long oak table, their laptops open, eyebrows raised as they watched a child climb onto one of the tall leather chairs. She pulled out a small notebook from her backpack, where colorful stickers of stars and rainbows decorated the cover. It wasn't a resume, but to Emily, it was just as important. Alexander leaned against the head of the table, studying her with curiosity. "All right, Emily. Suppose you were your mother. Why should I hire you?" Emily opened her notebook and flipped through scribbled pages. "Because my mom is the hardest worker I know. She wakes up at 5 every day to pack my lunch, then works at the diner all day, then studies at night. She doesn't complain, even when she's tired. She says hard work is the only way to climb mountains." The room was silent. Some executives exchanged glances, their skepticism slowly melting into surprise. Emily continued, her small hands trembling slightly but her voice steady. "Also, my mom is very good at organizing things. She keeps track of bills, doctor's appointments, my school projects, and even when the rent is due. She's like a superhero, except without a cape. She just really needs a chance. If you give her this job, I know she won't let you down." Alexander, who usually dismissed emotional appeals, found himself oddly moved. He cleared his throat, trying to keep his composure. "And what about you, Emily? What makes you think you're qualified to sit here today?" Emily looked down at her sneakers, then back up at him with a spark of innocence and wisdom far beyond her years. "Because I kept my promise. Mama said someone had to show up. And I did. Sometimes, showing up is the bravest thing." Those words hit Alexander like a blow. He thought of his own childhood, the nights spent alone in a mansion with parents who were always too busy, too distant. No one had ever shown up for him. He clenched his jaw, hiding the emotions that threatened to surface. The executives waited for his response, but Alexander simply said, "Interesting. Very interesting." He turned to Emily. "Do you know what this company does?" Emily tilted her head. "It makes money, right?" A ripple of laughter spread around the table. But Alexander raised a hand to silence them. "That's not wrong. But we also build things. Create opportunities. Solve problems." Emily nodded. "Then maybe you should solve ours." She slid the envelope across the table. "That's from Mama. She said it has her resume. I don't really know what's in it, but I promise to give it to you." Alexander picked it up slowly. The handwriting on the envelope was neat but slightly shaky. Something about it felt personal. He tucked it into his suit pocket. "Thank you, Emily," he said quietly. "That'll be all for now." The little girl hopped down from the chair, bowed politely the way she had seen in cartoons, and walked toward the door. But just before leaving, she turned and said softly, "Please don't forget about us, Mr. Raymond. Mama says hope is like a candle. Don't blow it out." The door closed behind her, leaving the room heavy with silence. For the first time in years, Alexander found himself unable to focus on profits, strategies, or competition. A little girl's words had pierced the armor around his heart. And he knew he couldn't just ignore it. The city was buzzing with its usual morning rush, horns honking, hurried footsteps echoing against the skyscrapers, and coffee carts doing brisk business. Inside the glass tower of Raymond Enterprises, the atmosphere was tense. Today, the company's billionaire CEO, Alexander Raymond, was personally overseeing job interviews for a coveted executive assistant role. Alexander was known for his sharp tongue and even sharper instincts. Rumors said he could see through lies like glass and that he had fired people for being 2 minutes late. Applicants lined up nervously, resumes clutched in sweaty hands, rehearsing their pitches under their breath. But amidst this high-pressure competition, someone unexpected was making her way to the 32nd floor. A little girl, no older than 9, wearing faded jeans and a yellow t-shirt that looked a size too big, clutched a crumpled envelope in her hand. Her hair was tied in 2 uneven ponytails, and her sneakers squeaked with every step. She walked past the polished suits and bewildered secretaries, her big brown eyes filled not with fear, but with determination. When the receptionist bent down and asked, "Sweetheart, are you lost?" the girl shook her head firmly. "No, ma'am. My mom was supposed to be here. But she's sick, so I came instead." The entire lobby fell silent. Laughter bubbled up from some of the applicants, while others exchanged pitying looks. But the girl stood her ground. She held up the envelope. "This is for Mr. Raymond. It's important. Mama said someone has to show up. She said never miss an interview." The receptionist blinked in shock, unsure of what to do. But before she could escort the girl out, the heavy glass doors of the boardroom swung open. Alexander Raymond himself stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his tailored navy suit flawless, his presence commanding silence like a thundercloud. His piercing gray eyes scanned the room and fell upon the little girl holding the envelope. "What is this?" he asked coldly. The receptionist stammered, "Yes, sir, this child, her mother had an interview, but apparently she's sick. The girl, she says she's here instead." A smirk tugged at the corner of Alexander's mouth. He crossed his arms, tilting his head at the child. "You came for your mother's job interview?" "Yes, sir," the girl said without hesitation. "Mama couldn't get up. She had a fever all night. But she said never give up. She said people who keep promises are the ones who succeed. So here I am." The room erupted in murmurs. Some applicants chuckled, others shook their heads. But Alexander, instead of dismissing her, walked closer. Something about the steadiness in her little voice struck him. He crouched down until his eyes were level with hers. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily," she replied. "Emily Carter." "And your mother?" "Her name's Sarah. She really needs this job. She's the best mom in the world. And she said if I came and told you the truth, maybe you'd understand." Alexander's gaze flickered. He had not expected sincerity from anyone today, let alone from a child. For reasons he couldn't explain, he stood and gestured. "Fine. Let's see what you've got, Emily. Come inside." Gasps filled the lobby as the little girl marched into the boardroom of one of the richest men in the country. None of them knew that the interview that was about to unfold would be remembered in the company's history forever. That night, Alexander Raymond sat alone in his penthouse apartment overlooking the glittering city skyline. The glass of whiskey on the table remained untouched, unusual for him. Normally, he drowned his stress in late-night drinks and endless work, but today something gnawed at him, the image of a little girl with ponytails, standing bravely in a room full of powerful adults, clutching her mother's envelope like it was her last weapon. He pulled the envelope from his pocket and opened it carefully. Inside was a neatly typed resume, Sarah Carter. Work experience, waitress, diner cashier, part-time office clerk. Education, community college, unfinished. Skills, bookkeeping, scheduling, strong multitasking ability. But it wasn't the resume that caught his attention. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "Mr. Raymond, I apologize for not being able to attend in person. I wanted this job more than you can imagine, but my illness kept me from standing today. Life hasn't been easy, but I refuse to let my daughter grow up believing that hard work leads nowhere. If nothing else, thank you for letting me try. Sarah Carter. Alexander stared at the words for a long time. Something stirred inside him, something he had buried years ago. He remembered his own mother, a kind woman who had passed away when he was barely 12. She had worked tirelessly, but his father, a wealthy businessman, had been harsh and unyielding. His father used to say, "Weakness has no place in business." Maybe that was why Alexander had grown into the man he was, a fortress of ambition, untouched by sentiment. But Emily's courage, Sarah's humility, it unsettled him. For the first time in years, Alexander wanted to do more than just build profits. He wanted to build people. The next morning, instead of going straight to the office, Alexander made a detour. He drove through the quieter part of the city, where small apartments stood in peeling paint and narrow alleyways smelled of fried food and laundry detergent. He parked near a worn-out building and checked the address written on the resume. Apartment 2B, 3rd floor. He climbed the creaky stairs and knocked. After a moment, the door opened slightly, revealing Emily. Her face lit up in surprise. "Mr. Raymond?" "Hello, Emily," he said, his usually cold voice softening. "May I come in?" Emily nodded and opened the door wider. The apartment was modest, 2 rooms, simple furniture, and shelves stacked with second-hand books. On the couch lay Sarah Carter, pale and weak but with eyes that shone with quiet strength. She tried to sit up quickly when she saw him. "Mr. Raymond. I'm so sorry. I didn't expect." Alexander raised a hand. "No apologies, Miss Carter. You should be resting." Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Emily shouldn't have bothered you. She's just a child." "She's more than that," Alexander interrupted gently. "She has more courage than most people I've ever met." He glanced at Emily, who beamed proudly. For a while, they talked. Sarah explained how she had struggled after Emily's father abandoned them, how she juggled multiple jobs to keep food on the table and still encouraged her daughter to dream bigger than their circumstances. Alexander listened quietly, something he rarely did. Finally, he said, "Ms. Carter, your daughter made quite an impression yesterday. And so did you, through your letter. I've decided to offer you the position." Sarah's eyes widened. You mean it?" "Yes. Part-time at first, until your health improves. We'll arrange flexible hours and medical support. But I need people like you, people who don't quit, no matter how hard life gets." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "Thank you. You don't know what this means." Emily ran to hug her mother, squealing with joy. "Mama, I told you hope is like a candle." Alexander felt something shift inside him, a warmth he hadn't known he missed. When he left the apartment, Emily ran after him and tugged his sleeve. "Mr. Raymond?" "Yes, Emily? Thank you for seeing us. People don't usually see us. They just walk past." Alexander crouched down, meeting her eyes. "Emily, sometimes people forget what really matters. You reminded me. Don't stop being you." As he drove away, Alexander realized something extraordinary. A little girl had managed to do what millions couldn't. She had cracked the armor around his heart. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah Carter became one of the most dependable employees at Raymond Enterprises. She proved her worth quickly, organizing Alexander's chaotic schedule, handling crises with grace, and offering ideas that impressed even the senior managers. Her illness, though still present, improved with the medical support Alexander insisted the company cover. But it wasn't just Sarah who changed the office, it was Emily too. Sometimes after school, Emily would stop by to wait for her mother. She'd sit in the lobby, chatting with secretaries, drawing colorful pictures of the tall building, and once even giving Alexander a hand-drawn card that said, "Thank you for helping Mama. You're like a hero in a suit." The staff adored Emily. She became a little spark of joy in the otherwise serious corporate world. And Alexander, the once feared CEO, found himself smiling more often whenever she was around. He started remembering what it felt like to care, to be human, to connect. One day, during a board meeting, Alexander made an announcement that stunned everyone. From this day forward, Raymond Enterprises will launch a new initiative, the Second Chance Program. We will hire single parents, struggling families, and those society often overlooks. Talent is not always wrapped in polished suits. Sometimes, it walks in wearing sneakers and holding a crumpled envelope. The room erupted in applause. His executives were moved, but none more than Sarah, who sat in the corner with tears streaming down her face. She knew the program was born from her story, from Emily's courage. That evening, as Alexander left his office, he found Emily waiting in the lobby with a wide grin. "Mr. Raymond. Guess what? Mama said she's feeling strong enough to take me to the park this weekend. And she says she's saving money for college now." "That's wonderful, Emily," Alexander said, smiling warmly. "Also," she added shyly, "I told my teacher that my mom works for the most important man in the city. But I think she's more important than you." Alexander chuckled, something his employees never thought they'd hear. "You're right. She is." That night, as he sat in his penthouse again, Alexander looked out at the city lights and thought about how different his life had become. Money, power, and success had once been everything to him. But now he understood something far greater, the power of kindness, the strength of resilience, and the innocence of a child who dared to speak truth in a world full of pretense. Months later, Raymond Enterprises' Second Chance program was featured in national news. The story of Sarah Carter and her little girl went viral, the CEO who hired hope. People across the country were inspired. Applications poured in, and lives began to change. As for Emily, she grew up never forgetting the lesson her mother had taught her, that showing up, even when it's hard, can change everything. And she never forgot Mr. Raymond, the man who once seemed untouchable but who chose to listen when no one else would. Years down the line, at a college graduation ceremony, Alexander sat proudly in the audience, clapping as Emily Carter crossed the stage to receive her degree. She spotted him and waved, her eyes sparkling with the same courage she had shown the day she walked into his office. Sometimes, Alexander thought, the smallest footsteps leave the deepest marks. And in that moment, he realized, Emily hadn't just saved her mother's future. She had saved his. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away, like, share, and subscribe to spread more kindness and hope. Your one share could inspire someone to never give up.